Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will discuss about the inequalities and what are the rules of inequalities. As we have discussed earlier, that we have some notions for the inequalities. Like here, we are given the strictly less than. This is the notion for the strictly less than inequality. And we also discussed in the class that we have other inequalities like strictly greater than or less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And here we will discuss the rules for the inequalities. If A, B, and C are real numbers, we will take any arbitrary numbers here, A, B, and C. They could be any number from the real numbers. So in general, we are taking arbitrary numbers A, B, and C. And here we have the first rule for the inequality that if number A is strictly less than B, this implies this is the sample, which means that it implies that if it holds, then it implies that if we add a same quantity on both sides of the inequality, for example, here we are adding this C on the left side of the inequality and on the right side of the inequality. If we add the same quantity on both sides of the inequality, that would be still less than to the this side. It will not affect on this symbol, this strictly less than. If A is already less than number B, so if we add the same quantity on each side, it will not affect the inequality. It will be still the less. This left hand side will be still less than to the right hand side. For example, if you are taking any particular number here, you can check it by giving here any particular numbers. Like you can take that A is 1 and B is 2. We know that 1 is strictly less than 2. So if we add a same quantity, let's say we add one another number there, C, and C is equal to, maybe you can say that it's equal to 5. So if we add with 1 plus 5, so it will be a 6 and it will be a less than equal to, if here we have 2, B is 2 and then plus 5, so that would be 7. So obviously 6 is strictly less than 7. It will not affect on the inequality. Similarly, we have the second rule that if A is less than B, it implies that A minus C is strictly less than B minus C. Now, this time, what we are doing here, we are adding on both sides negative C, the same quantity on both sides. But this time we are going to subtract that same quantity on each side of the inequality. Again, it will not affect the this inequality symbol. It will be still less than to the right side. And now third rule is A is if a number A is strictly less than B and C number is greater than 0, it implies AC is strictly less than BC. So here we have the multiplication in inequality here. And now why we are taking this C greater than 0? Obviously, we can not multiply the inequality with 0. If we will multiply with the 0, then it will not, we will get back the 0 on both sides of the inequalities. So how we can check the this inequality, either it is less than or not, it will affect if we multiply some quantity on both sides of the inequality, either it will affect on the inequality or not. So that's why we are taking strictly greater than 0 number. So if we will multiply, for example, here A is similarly, if we consider that here, we assume that A is 1 and B is 2. And if we multiply a same quantity, let's say C is 5 with A, then we will get back here 5 is strictly less than 10. Because here, as we assumed already that b is 2, so let us write over here. It will be easy to understand for you. Let's say this a is, oh, it's very difficult to write over here. So I've written this a is 1 and b is equal to 2, and then c is a number that is equal. No, we are taking these all arbitrary number. You can consider any number from the number line or the real numbers. You can take any of the number. So just for instance, we are taking that a is 1 and b is 2 and c is 5. And I'm sorry, this 2, because of this 2, but it is 2. Okay, now if we multiply this 5 with the number 1, with the number a, we will get 5. And when we'll multiply by b, then we will get the number 10. So obviously that will be still, this inequality holds. This will be left hand side will be still less than equal to, strictly less than to the right side. I hope you are getting all these inequalities. We can check these inequalities by giving a particular number to these numbers, arbitrary numbers a, b, and c. And now we have the fourth rule. Similarly, you can prove this. Okay, now here I think I will discuss this as well. A is strictly less than b and c is less than 0. Now this means if the number is less than 0, we know from the number line, if we have a number line, we know that here in the middle we have the origin, and to the left side of the origin we will have the negative values till negative infinity. And here we have on the right side of the origin, we will have the positive values here, and toward it will go toward the positive infinity. So if we know this time, we will not take the c5, but if c is less than 0 and less than 0, we know that what are those numbers, -1, -2, -3, and so on. So this implies bc is less than ac. So if we take here -1 and we will multiply this -1 c, this time if we are taking c as a -1 number, which is less than 0, so when we will multiply with 1, it will be -1. And when we will multiply with the b quantity, that is 2, so then we will get a as a 2. So here we will have 2, 2 into -1, that would be a -2. So this time we know that -2 is less than. So we will write this BC is strictly less than AC because -2 is less than, as we can see over here, that here we have the -1, here we have negative -2. So we know that if we approach to the infinity to the left side of the origin, we will get the smaller number here. This -2 is smaller than -1. So that's why we have written here this time that BC is less than AC. And similarly, the -3 is less than -2. This is the smaller number here over the left side as we are approaching to the negative infinity. So that's why we have written this inequality. And the special case, if A is less than B, this implies minus B is strictly less than minus A. Because if we multiply with the sign, if A is less than B, and if we multiply here, for example, if A is less than B, as we consider here A is 1 and B is 2. So this time 1 is strictly less than 2. As we know that this inequalities hold that if A is strictly less than B, for example, A is 1 and B is 2, so 1 is strictly less than 2. This holds. This implies if we multiply with the negative number, for example, if we multiply with the negative symbol, this 1 and this 2. So what would happen? Now this time this would be a greater number than the negative 2. So this means negative 2 is less than negative 1. And what is negative 2? This is actually the B. B would be less than minus A. Minus B would be strictly less than minus A. Are you getting this? I hope you are getting this. That if we will multiply with the negative sign, it will be a less than. Now this time B would be a less than the negative A. Now the fifth one is if A is greater than 0, this implies 1 upon A is greater than 0. It is understood that if we have any quantity that is greater than 0, there is no negative sign. So obviously that would be also, for example, if we take here the number 2, 2 is greater than 0, then 1 upon 2 would be what? 1 upon 1 upon 2 would be equal to 0.5. 1, it would be 0.5. So that is obviously greater than 0. If you can take here, if 3 is greater than 0, then 1 upon 3 is equal to 0.33 and so on. So that is definitely greater than 0. But yes, if here we have the negative sign, or we can say that if A is less than 0, then there the case will be not the same. Now the sixth is if A and B are both positive or both negative, then A is less than B. This implies 1 upon B is strictly less than 1 upon A. So as we have considered here, if A is, for example, 3 and B is, for example, 2. Here we consider that A is 2 and B is 3. Now, what we are doing here, we are taking strictly less than number A, that is strictly less than 3. But what will happen when we will take a reciprocal of these numbers, as we have taken here, 1 upon, what would be here? 1 upon 2. 1 upon 2 will be what? About, now what is B? 1 upon 3. So you can check that it would be 0.33 and so on. You can write all of these and it would be equal to 0.5. Now you can see that if you have taken strictly less than number, 2 is strictly less than 3, then if you take the reciprocal of these numbers, 1 upon B, 1 upon 3, that would be a strictly less than 1 upon A. That is 1 upon 2. Okay, you can see that 0.33 is strictly less than 0.5. I hope all these are now clear. All these inequalities are clear for you. But still, if you have any problem, To understand these inequalities, let me know in the comment box, and then I will try to write these inequalities on the paper and I will explain them again for you people. Thank you.